How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to TheBlueShifting. Welcome back to Fruit of Grisaia. Now, I'm very happy because a lot of people have been really engaging with this series so far, so thank you so much. I know we're only a couple episodes in, but it's really fun reading all your comments and being able to kind of hear your thoughts and feelings about the series. I've even had a few of you just say thank you for playing the game, which is always exciting because it's like, I didn't know you were so starved. I'm happy to be able to help. And I hope I can make it a good experience for you. Also, there's been a lot of talk about paths and which route I'm going to end up going down. So I kind of want to reiterate. I think I talked about it at the beginning of my first episode, but just real quick, just so we can kind of get on the same page here, because I've already had to respond to it a few times, and I just want to make sure everyone knows who's listening. Typically, I try and have a middle ground where I am a content creator who's trying to share my personal experiences with a good story with those who are interested. And, typically people who have either already read the story or maybe a few people who are looking to see if they want to buy this or not, and they might watch the first few episodes just to see what they think. Ideally that's the kind of audience and interaction I'm hoping for. The other hand, this is a heavily narrative story, and thus, I do share a lot of the content that the game has to offer. And so I try and come up with a balanced place where I can ultimately kind of meet in the middle with developers. And so, ideally, I don't show everything in the game. So usually, unless there's a really good reason to do otherwise, I only show one ending. Now, I'll usually play through the game and experience all the endings and be able to talk about them and kind of go over my thoughts of it. But my first experience, my completely blind playthrough wise, we pretty much are just going to cover the main one I get. I know that can be disappointing to hear, but it's a way for me to be able to share a lot of good content with a good narrative conclusion without really stepping on the toes of the developers, who I want to support. I want all of us to be able to support because we want more games like this. So we need to show the developers and the publishers that there's an audience here who are not going to pirate their games, who genuinely want to support the industry. So that's really why I take that middle ground and why it's important. Now, some of you have even said that you hope that I get certain types of endings or even recommend certain endings. But here's the thing. A lot of you are saying different ones. And some of you even expressing, oh, you should do this one, but my favorite's this one. It kind of is showing me that I can't go wrong, really. I'm going to just kind of play the game, and we're going to get the ending we get. And I know that might be disappointing in a lot of ways, but at the same time, isn't that kind of what's exciting about it? It's I don't know anything about this. I don't even know what the triggers are. So I might get an ending I don't expect. And honestly, the times when that's happened, that's actually worked out better. One of my smaller games that I covered, which is Love Esquire, I actually was interested in pursuing a specific character in the romance branch. I ended up getting deflected based on the choices I made and things that caught my attention into a different route, and I found that route to be incredibly enjoyable. And when I played all the endings, it was my favorite one. So there's a lot of benefit to that. Anyway. Enough of all this ranting, let's get started. In the time-honored traditions of America, bright red cars are called pony cars because their reputation is playthings for schoolboys, while yellow models are jackass cars because only morons drive them. I've never heard these terms before. Maybe it's a rich people thing? I don't know. Maybe it's a 90s thing? I still feel like I would kind of know that, but I was pretty young, so yeah, it might have just been a generational thing I missed. A certain German woman I know, whether aware of it or not, deliberately drives a particularly flashy yellow vehicle around. Okay, so he knows Germans, he knows Americans, he gets around. Apparently, she very much enjoys the compliments she gets from the colleagues at work, usually some variation of, it really suits you. In other words, a stupid car like that is just about right for a dumb blonde, but she has not caught on to the fact that she's being mocked, and I've tactfully decided not to inform her either. Just like with women who get flattered when someone tells them your dress does wonders for your figure, it's pretty tough to let her know that after the fact that she's not really being complimented. But sometimes things like this can come back to bite you when you least expect it. Uh-oh. What's gonna happen here?
ねえ、ユージくん。
Ah, I see.
なんかあそこにいる怪人の女の人、こっち見て手を振ってるんだけど、知り合い？
Yeah. Oh, hello. I mean, she don't look bad. She does have a nice yellow car. I definitely agree, though. I wouldn't buy a yellow car. Of course, I also wouldn't buy one of these kinds of cars. Even if I had the money, I'm not that kind of a car person. I'd want to, maybe test drive a fancy car. Maybe take it on a racetrack where you can really just put the pedal to the metal, but, why buy a high performance vehicle if you're never gonna actually push it? And then if you are gonna push it, why? Like, I don't know. I personally would rather waste my money on a boat because I enjoy going boating. But you know what? I bet you car enthusiasts would probably say, why would you buy a boat? It's useless. So yeah, you know, choose your poison for rich spending. Don't know her. I don't have any bimbos in my acquaintances.
いや、でもなんかめっちゃあんたに向かって手振ってるんだけど。
I told you, I don't know her. Probably selling Girl Scout cookies.
何それ？
Either way, better not get too close. Let's get out of here.
Howdy, Yuuji.
Dang it. JB?
ねえ、思いっきりユージって呼んでるよ。
Ugh. What is this woman thinking?
誰なの？
I'll explain later. Sorry, but go on ahead.
何？やっぱ知り合いなの？まさか借金取りとかじゃないよね。
Oddly enough, you might not be that far off. She's my guardian, or rather my guarantor.
大丈夫なの？
It's fine. Hurry up and take Makina back. I'll be right behind you. I'm just gonna go say a quick hello. Apparently, not enjoying the way I'm shooing her off with my hands like a stray dog, Amane walks away with a sulky expression, shooting repeated glances over her shoulder. Well, yeah, I mean, it's one thing you dismiss her. It's gonna just drive her crazy curiosity-wise, especially because you were trying to avoid the situation and now you're embracing it. But if you're going shoo, 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 like, yeah, of course she's gonna be a little upset. I'd be upset if you did that to me, even if I totally understood. After watching Amane and Makina disappear past the school gate, I screw up an irritated expression, scratch my head vigorously, and approach the blinding yellow bimbo mobile. Look, woman.
やあ、学生生活を楽しんでいるかい？
Uh-huh. Yeah, more or less. You enjoying pretending to be my guardian?
嫌な物言いをするのね。あなたのそういうところ、朝子にそっくりよ。
I'm sure that's not meant to be a compliment. What did you come here for?
何しに来たはないでしょ？私、一応あなたの保護者なんだよ。
Although I'm grateful that you're acting as a guarantor of my background, I don't need a guardian at my age. Kindly get lost.
冷たいのね。子供の頃はもっと素直で可愛かったのに。
But don't you think this might be why I don't want you here? Do you think you can shut me up by bringing up my childhood? You've got another thing coming. I'll repeat the question. Why did you come here for? If it's about work, I thought I had a break for the moment.
やあね。私はただ、あなたが普通の学校で普通にやっていけてるのか、様子を見に来ただけよ。
I'm doing alright considering how unnormal this school is, but there's no problem at the present. If you force me to come up with one, you'll be here with a, you being here would be top of the list. It's gonna be a pain in the butt to make up excuses when I go back to the classroom. Don't increase my workload.
破綻のない過去は用意してあげたでしょ？私のことは母方の親戚だって押し通しなさいな。
I'd prefer to avoid lying outright whenever possible. Lies are like colors. The more you pile up, the blacker things get. That's actually a pretty decent saying. Like you mix too many colors, it just turns into mud.
嘘の場合は赤くなるでしょ？
Get enough of the place and the things turn out just black.
そうならないようにうまく立ち回ることね。事故死はしたくないでしょ？
Yeah. I don't need you to tell me that. I'm handling this myself, which is precisely why I don't need you giving me surprises like this.
わかったわよ。今日のところはこれで帰るわ。
What, are you serious? You really did just come to see me?
そう言ったでしょ。仕事の話なら事前に携帯に連絡してから来るわよ。
Huh. So we're like co-workers, essentially. Ah, right, the cell phone.
ちょっと、まさか持ち歩いてないの？ちゃんと仕事用とプライベート用に2つ用意してあげたでしょ？
Sorry, I'll make sure to keep it around from now on.
こちらからの呼び出しに対して15分以上返答がなかった場合、逃亡とみなして何人か送りつけるわよ。
Okay.
わかってる？
If we can be under desertion, we're definitely in the military. I'm aware. Or a pseudo-military. We could be in a contractual one that just operates like a military.
それと 県外に出るときは事前に申請書を提出すること。
Are we also a prisoner then? I'm aware of that as well.
思い出した。あなた、この町に来るとき、歩いて県境を越えたでしょ。
I hate trains, as you know.
だからって200キロも歩くバカがどこにいるのよ。
This idiot. Don't you... The kind that's standing in front of you. Also, the walk was closer to 175 kilometers.
そのせいで警察の世話になったくせに偉そうに言わないの。上から嫌味を言われるのは私なのよ。ちょっとめんどくせえなこの女みたいな目で私をじっと見るのやめなさい。
We're not very good at covering our expressions, are we? You some kind of psychic? How'd you read my thoughts?
泣くわよ。
Oh. No, look. I do feel bad about that. I'll apologize nice and slowly over dinner next time, okay? So please leave.
飯でも食わせておけば私が黙ると思ったら大間違いよ。もう一度言うけど、事故死したくなければおかしな真似はしないこと。わかった？
So, is she saying accidental death as a way of extracting us and putting us back where we were, like, in spite of our wishes? Or is she literally meaning you'll die and it'll be made to look like an accident? Because those are some very different feelings. Understood. Orders received, Major, Harudera. Harudera. That's a tongue twister. Hey, stop saying, can I hit this guy just once with your eyes?
あなたエスパーなの？
Please don't spread it around. It's a pain in the butt to have to be bent to spoon every time I introduce myself.
あのね。
I do understand. Don't mind my jokes.
まったく。なんでこんな可愛げのない子に育ったのかしら。
I don't know. I get that a lot. Hurry up and get going. You don't need up the time to play around here either, do you?
言われなくても帰るわよ。それと、しつこいようだけど。
You're right. My bad, JB.
わかればいいわよ。じゃ、また連絡するわ。
I think I need to get this a little closer. Yeah. I watch as JB turns away and climbs into her car, her blonde hair swinging behind her in waves as she drives off. I retrieve the cell phone from my school bag. Although I'd pretended otherwise, I'd been carrying my work phone around just as ordered. It's a black low-profile slide phone I received from JB specifically for company business. I slide the screen up quickly, inputting to a lock pin, and call it the menu screen. Okay, so he's been behaving like a military, but he calls it a company. So yeah, it must be like ex-military mercenary band, like the Russia's Wagner group kind of a thing. Essentially, the type of people you hire for political reasons to do things that are on the line of borderline, like causing incidents, but giving you that degree of deniability. Essentially, because you can say, like, if they get caught or they do something really terrible, you can just say, like, hey, look, like, we just asked for a job to get done. They went overboard. You know, it gives you that ability to kind of pretend like you are not to be held responsible, or like not truly responsible. You know, making you have to pay fees or pay favors rather than declaring war. Although it looks like a perfectly normal cell phone, any calls made from this machine pass through a special encrypted line. There's only one entry in the contacts. That single number is listed under JB, Julia Bardera, naturalized name, Harudera Yuria, my direct supervisor at my part-time job. Okay, so he described her as being German. Okay, interesting. So we're getting a good glimpse into what his past is like and kind of what he's up to, which it doesn't really answer questions, but at least it helps clarify a few things. They're gonna come, at least give me an advance warning. I click my tongue in irritation, sliding my phone shut and stuff it into my pocket of my uniform so I can respond instantly to any future contact. Harudera Yuria, alias JB, as the woman said herself, she's something of a pain in the ass. She'll go nearly half a year without a single call, then suddenly it's brisk, stand by at a designated point, where, of course, she has some incredibly troublesome job waiting to push me on. No, it's almost better when there's actually a job. Sometimes she leaves me at a rendezvous point for more than an hour without any contact. And then, when I finally realize the call I've been sitting around waiting for, it's a curt situation resolved, and I go right back home again. Well, I do get the travel fee deposited into my account just for heading to the standby point, so I suppose it's not a complete fool's errand in that sense, but sometimes I can't help but feel like my time on this earth isn't being spent efficiently. It's something of a behind-the-scenes part-time job, and the work would be troublesome to explain to others if they asked. Of course, it's also not the kind of job you can casually quit when I want to. I think he's referring to it as a part-time job, but like even without the quotes being there, you're gonna hear them in the line. More importantly, this is a position that I inherited from my master. I wouldn't walk away even if I could. Well then, how should I explain this to Amane and company? I don't think I'll be able to pass her off as a cookie peddler after all. I'm pretty sure that wouldn't have worked anyway. I passed through Mihama Academy school gate, dragging myself along on heavy feet. As expected, the instant I showed my face in the classroom, Amane jumps all over me. Most of my classmates are gathered on the far side of the room, apparently having watched me from the window. As I enter, they're all looking at me with questions in their eyes. I would say they're being pretty nosy, but they're in a school with 6 people. Anything that breaks up the monotony would be interesting.
ねえ、誰なの？さっきのパツキン。
Blondie? Naturally, Amane is the one who steps forward to interrogate me as if declaring herself the representative of the class. That said, the rest of the group doesn't seem to be disinterested either. Makina is staring at me with a dazed expression, and Sachi is clutching her hands together in front of her chest, waiting for my words with bated breath. Man, they're invested! As for Michiru, for some reason, she's glaring at me like I kicked her puppy. Sakaki, on the other hand, is sitting primly in her seat, reading a book, as if to announce she's above such things, but judging from the way she hasn't turned the page once since I came in, we've probably got her attention as well. I told you already, didn't I? She's my superior for my part-time job.
上司か。上司ね。ユージくん、バイトなんかしてるんだ。
Yeah, I lost both my parents when I was a kid, so I have to earn my own living expenses.
どんなバイトなの？
A little difficult to summarize, but while I get rid of garbage and crawl into various places and take care of the cleaning, it's what you'd call it dirty work. Right.
じゃあ、あのパツキンの人も清掃業なの？
More like a coordinator. That's right, but she's on the management side, so she doesn't get her hands dirty.
へえ、あの人名前は？
JB.
JB?
Her real name is Harudera Yuria. JB's a pet name.
あの見た目で日本人なの？
She's a naturalized citizen. I think she's originally German? Don't really remember. I pull out a chair from my seat and drop my bag into the desk with a deliberately loud thump. The questioning over now. If you've satisfied your curiosity, then sit down. Class is going to start. Just as I speak, the first bell rings and Makina and Sachi scurry back to their seats. Amane, on the other hand, does not look happy. I'm sorry, Subika. But the large woman who's been interrogating me, her expression still smoldering with irritation, pulls out a chair from the seat in front of mine and sits down heavily.
ねえ、ユージくん。私、まだ肝心なことを聞いてないわ。
Oh boy. What? Spit it out then.
あの人との関係、恋人じゃないんだよね。
She's like 10 years older than me. I'm pretty sure that'd be illegal. That's your big question? What a joke.
くだらなくないわよ。
Don't stick your nose in my face.
ドキドキしちゃう？
You've got a mustache starting there.
嘘！
It's called being human. We all have facial hair. Guys tend to show it, but girls grow hair. Just the way it is because we're people and human beings. Yeah, just screwing with you.
グーで殴るよ。
That does sound like Subika, actually. Sounds fun. Give it a try.
この！
Amane's punch is slow and lacking in serious intent. I dodge it easily with a slight swaying movement of my upper body. Think this over calmly. Do I look like a man who could be in a relationship?
あんたみたいな男だから謎なんじゃない。年上で金髪の外人が恋人でも、あんたなら妙に納得できるというか。
Really? Amane stares into my eyes as if searching for the truth.
そもそも、うちの学園長とも知り合いなんでしょ？
I'm not comfortable with how good she is at actually picking up on stuff. It's kind of creepy. Impressive, but kind of creepy. Well, yeah.
怪しい。
Yeah. What is?
この学園に来る前は何をしていたの？
Working. Well, so this question finally came up. On paper, I was studying abroad in Canada or some similar lie they came up with for my forged personal history, but if they start pushing into that story, this will just drag on. Answering somewhat honestly would now make for less trouble down the line anyway. Before I came here, I guess it was a freeloader of sorts.
紐？
If you want to make it sound fancier, maybe a gigolo? I was being supported by an unrelated older woman.
それが金髪の人？
Another term would be like a sugar baby. Isn't he 16? No, she's a friend of the other woman. I started mooching off her after the first one died.
あんた、最低ね。
I guess to be fair, I'm applying conventional American, laws. In Japan, as far as I'm aware, the age of consent is technically lower, but I still think this would be illegal. Like, age of consent's one thing, but I do think age gaps are still a problem. Unfortunately, from what I've heard, the issue isn't so much whether or not it's against the law, it's whether or not Japan actually enforces or does more than slap on the wrist people who breach this type of rule, which is really disturbing. Unfortunately, it's like, Japan has a lot of good things about it, but there's some pretty weird stuff that they just let slide. Of course, comparatively, they probably think like America's obsession with allowing guns and frequency and like capability as often as we do, just as crazy. So, to each nation their own weaknesses. In exchange, she worked me brutally hard on the job. She doesn't have anything to complain about. Amane shuts her eyes, snapping her hand to her forehead and heaving a heavy sigh.
とにかく、恋人はいないってことで間違いないのね。
Ironically, after hearing my apparent job as a gigolo, her only real concern is whether I'm taken. Right. I'll admit I don't quite understand why that's the main point here, but I guess this stuff is on the mind of girls at this age, so if you try to force your perspective onto everything, you'll lose sight of the bigger picture. Although she doesn't look entirely satisfied by my obedient response, Amane mutters a brief, "Well, all right," rises from the chair and heads off to her own seat. I watch until she finally sits down, then quickly turn to look behind me.
何よ。
Hey, Michiru. Immediately behind me, I find the bright red Michiru staring back at me. Were you listening?
別にあんたのことなんか興味ないんだからね。
Haha.
聞いてたんじゃなくて聞こえちゃっただけよ。勝手に変な話聞かせないでよね。迷惑なんだから。
Alright, so she's funny. It's really stupid, but maybe you can relate. Ironically, way back when FGO, Fate Grand Order, first released in North American servers, like I had just recently learned a little bit about the Fate series in general. I think I watched Fate Zero. It was like one of the first anime I picked up when I really started getting into it, and I loved it. And so when the app came out, I knew it was like centered around the same kind of concept and everything. I got it. And so I've been playing it ever since like day one release, and I've loved it. It's really, and I've been able to do so without really spending much money. Like I only spent a little bit, but like when I put so much time and gotten so much enjoyment out of the game, it stops being as big of a problem. And I've only spent money on guaranteed stuff. So again, not really a whale or anything. And I've been able to have a very successful time and really enjoyed my playthrough with all the free stuff. It's one of all the gacha games I've tried, it's one of the only ones that legitimately can be played as a free-to-play player and feel like you can be involved in the game and play in the meta. Most of the time, you have to pay for the right to be able to actually play in the game, like, properly. Anyway, the reason why I bring this up is they just did Lost Belt 6, which is just, like, the most recent chapter that got published in North America, and has a character called Autoria, who's just the best character in that story. And when she's not tsundere, but she gets, like, these, like, she'll get like mad over little things, like she'll just lose her temper. And when they draw her with the same like style of teeth, and I just thought it was adorable. So like I'm kind of remembering that and just that recent enjoyment of that storyline, really, really good. Yeah, and the music also was it's amazing. Early stuff was definitely fairly simple because the app was just first launching off, but since they have a solid budget in the later chapters, they've been able to up the production value, up the writing and the characterization, and specifically the music is just amazing. So if nothing else, I highly recommend if you want to look up Fate Grand Order original soundtrack, specifically Avalon Le Fay. That specific soundtrack group is just fantastic. And I think the track that's my favorite is The Day a Star is Born. It's just awesome. Anyway, so I know it's super tangential, but I can't help but think about it right now. Crossing her arms tightly in front of her chest, her face bright red, Michiru babbles frantically. In response, I thrust out my right hand in an energetic thumbs up. That was my left hand, actually, so this one. Nice tsundere, Michiru.
バカにして。
If you don't want to talk about something, you should make it awkward to ask. On that theory, I tried spicing things up a little bit more than reality, but who knows how much of it they believe. Okay, so the gigolo was an exaggeration. That makes sense. Of course, it's true my parents died when I was still a kid, that I was picked up by older women, my master, and I lived off the money she earned. After my master's death, I did get work from her friend JB in order to earn my keep. On top of that, it's thanks to her vouching for me that I'm able to attend a normal school like this one in the first place. Now that I think about it, I didn't change the facts much at all. But then, the more you focus on constructing believable lies, the less they tend to work. When you stick to more or less the truth, you'll end up convincing people no matter how absurd the story sounds. It's actually true. Not just because there's three reasons for that. The number one reason is the fact that it can be pretty apparent for most people, unless you're really good at lying, that you're trying to piece together a story when you're being interrogated. This is actually why police do interrogations, and why they tend to make you feel a little trapped when they really put the pressure on, because they watch for you frantically trying to put something together that sounds believable, because just that process can be pretty easy to detect if you know what you're looking for. Point number two, by telling partial truths, you don't display the unconscious reactions and mannerisms of a liar. Now, of course, someone with a good poker face can avoid that, but most people don't train themselves to do that. And so they are unable to really hide the little tics that they give off when they're lying. And even if you're not a master body language reader or interpreter or psychologist, most of us can still pick up on the little changes in pitch and mannerism that kind of indicate that there's something amiss, and that can kind of clue us in. And then finally, the worst part about lying is that if you tell a lie and later down the line, a few weeks later, someone asks you a question about it, if you don't remember what you said and you say something different, dead giveaway. So lie with the truth. It's terrible to even be saying you have to lie, but here's the thing. We're human beings, we lie. It's going to happen. Ideally, you don't want to lie in ways that will hurt you or others. But, that's inevitable when you're lying. But if you're going to lie, at least lie with the truth. Because then you can maintain your story better, you look more believable, and it's easier to not get confused on it. As a professional, because I'm human, that's my advice. If you want to lie and get away with it, that's the best way to go. A promising start would be a bit of an overstatement, but I think I can work with this. Interesting. So that was a little bit of an interlude. As soon as the lecturer leaves the classroom, Michiru slumps forward onto her desk. We've only gotten through 2 periods. You out of stamina already?
そんなのわかってるけど、座学の授業が続くとどうしてもこうなるのよ。それからさっち、シャーペンの芯がなくなっちゃったんだけど、返し持ってる？はい、どうぞ。
Sachi, I imagine you always come prepared.
ありがとう。そうそう。料理の時いつもここだけ使い道がなくて困るのよね。
You talking about lead?
ってこれ、キャベツの芯じゃないの
Also, even mechanical pencils don't typically use real lead. They use graphite, or is she just talking to talk? That is kind of funny, though. But why does she have actual lead?
これって日頃からシャーペンの芯とか消しゴムをサチから借りてる私へのいじめ。もしかして私実はサチに嫌われてる。
That's quite the imaginative leap you've got in logic there.
ほらサッチ、早く誤解を解いてあげないとチルチルが溶けてなくなっちゃうのよ。
すみません。みちる様が欲しかったのはこちらですよね。
Sachi hands Michiru a new lead for her mechanical pencil.
もう頼むわよサチ。さすがの私もちょっとびっくりしちゃったじゃない。
Michiru is absolutely, like, horrifically almost obsessed with the way people perceive her. What's really interesting about that is it's very reminiscent of me in high school. Now, I didn't dress up in a blonde wig and pretend to be a tsundere. Though, if I had known that were a tactic, I don't know if I would have said no to it entirely. But no, I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have had the guts. But I did suffer heavily from an obsessive, like, over anxiety, like, focus on the way people perceived me. I didn't necessarily need them to like me. I didn't even need to be popular. I didn't want any of that. I just didn't want anyone to hate me. But the problem is that's very similar in just a kind of a different direction, you could say. Like, if you're desperate to be popular, you don't really necessarily want to be liked by everybody. You just want to be liked by the people who seem to be liked the most by everyone else. As long as you can get in with that crowd, you tend to feel okay. I, on the other hand, didn't really want the spotlight at all. I tended to like being in the background. I was an NPC to the core. But I also wanted people to like me and would enjoy spending time with me, and not like the worst thing that could happen is feeling like I was hated. And that's the same thing. That's what Michiru is like obsessed with, is like she doesn't want to be hated. She doesn't want people to look down on her, and she doesn't want people to like write her off. Ironically though, she's trying to do so by being a trope that she clearly isn't. Like, she's acting like a tsundere. She's not actually one. So I'm not sure why she feels that's gonna help her with that goal.
飲みの心臓ダムのね。
Hey.
失礼ね。いくらなんでもそこまで小さくないわよ。ハエと同じぐらいの肝玉は持ってるわよ。
Yeah, self-deprecating humor.
どうせ見栄を張るならもっとマシな生き物にしなさいよ。なんなら試してみる？
What the fetch? You threatening everyone with that knife?
いえ、本当に結構です。ごめんなさい。
Way to prove her right.
ねえねえサッチ、わしには負け組葉っぱちょうだい。
What?
ルーズリーフのことだよね。
Oh.
はい、どうぞ、マキちゃん。
She said loser leaf. I was like, what is that? Some kind of like another bird? But no, it's just notebook paper.
グラッチグラッチ。
What the fetch? What? Are you like doing like Italian cheek kisses?
こらこらマキナ、教室で発情するの禁止。
邪魔が入ったようなのよさ。じゃあ続きはベッドの上で。
Oh, interesting. I'm willing to bet she saw some spy movie yesterday. Oh, okay, so she's just channeling an okay. I was actually interested. I was like, oh, do they actually have interrelations? That would be interesting, because like oftentimes games like this are pretty much just like you have the MC and you have all the dateable branches, you know? Nothing else is extenuating going on, but it'd be kind of nice and interesting to see dynamics where it's like, oh, like you can't just date all these characters. Like some of them wouldn't be interested. Others are already spoken for, but they can all be like a mixture of friends and potential romances, because that's more realistic. Anyways, you really got the work, Sachi.
何でもというのはどんなものでしょうか？
What?
やっぱりここって突っ込んだ方がいいの？どうだろうね。
You're a unique one.
ありがとうございます。しかもなんか褒められてるし。ねえ。
Let's see. Do you have a chisel in hand as well?
はい。
As soon as I request it, a chisel set emerges from the depths of her desk. How about heavy-duty stapler that can handle dozens of sheets of paper at once? Standing from her desk, Sachi walks off to face a large locker in the back of the classroom. What's with that locker? It's twice the size of the others.
詰め込むものがたくさんあるさっちゃん専用ってやつ？
Good grief. She's like a doomsday prepper, but for school supplies.
それはこれのことでしょうか？
Within a few minutes, she finds the requested item and brings it to me. Normally, I'd expect to have to go to the stationery store to get something like this.
ちょっとユージ、あんた今頃何言ってるのよ。
ん？
十徳ナイフより幸を持てっていうのがこのクラスでの常識よ。
Yeah, I can see that. Swiss Army knives cover basic needs. Many, but basic needs. She has specialized needs. Are you saying her karate chop cuts sharper than the folding blade?
そうじゃなくて、さっちゃんはそれだけ何でも用意できるってこと。
I see. Well, considering her apparent skill and devotion, I suppose that she's well prepared to deal with most requests.
まあ、その格言が生まれたのにも理由があるわけだけど、あれはあまりの暑さで教室のクーラーも故障したうだるような夏の日だったわ。
What's this dramatic telling?
今日は本格的に寒いわね。これじゃあセミの寿命も2割引きよ。
It's cold?
ねえねえチルチル、じゃあ今日のお昼は鍋にしようよ。鍋。こういう時こそ体も心もグツグツ煮えたぎるのよさ。
おお、マキナもたまにはいいこと言うじゃない。
What's with that laugh? That sounded super fake.
何？あれ、さあ、暑さのせいで湧いちゃったんでしょ？
Oh, I see. It's so hot, but they're complaining it's cold.
湧いちゃったって。
でしょでしょ。学園で鍋ってところが飛び抜けてるでしょ。
うんうん、見直した。
I've always wanted to do an authentic hot pot. I might have to just finagle a home version. It won't be super. Like, I'll make it as authentic as I can, obviously, but like, that was one of the things I was hoping to try in Japan. Like, especially if I was going in the fall, which is kind of like the fall or winter, which is most likely what the time of year I was gonna be able to go. I mean, I'd love to go in spring or summer, but those also tend to be the most busy times of year. But now, I should probably just try it here.
というわけでサチ、鍋セットの用意は任せたわよ。はい、わかりました。
No, she'll actually do it.
なんて、さすがに鍋は無理よね。ってあれ？さっちゃん、どこ行ったんだろう。
She took you seriously.
鍋をやるために必要なものを集めに行ったんでしょ？まさか。だって私もマキナも冗談で言ってただけなのよ。
No, Sachi's too serious. She's too straight-laced. She doesn't understand jokes and sarcasm.
いきなりやるって言ってもきっとできっこないし。
私の耳にはわかりましたってうなずいたように聞こえたけど。
AKA, she can.
う
Uh-oh.
そう言われてみれば。
うなずいてたかも。最初は全員が半信半疑だった。でも授業に顔を出さず4時間目の授業終了と同時に戻ってきたサチは。
Did she literally like walk to the city or something?
お待たせしました。
Oh my gosh. And she's sniffling. Oh no.
可愛く鼻水を垂らしながら土鍋セットと食材を抱えていたのよ。
でもあの時食べたお鍋はすっごく美味しかったのよさ。
そう？マキナがお菓子入れたりするから最後はゲテモノ鍋になってた気がするけど。
I get childish sometimes, but that's just weird. Ugh.
ってこらー、私が熱を入れて語ってるんだからスルーしないでよ。
Peanut gallery. Incidentally, if I said I wanted a nabe right now, would you be able to prepare things like you did before?
はい、できますけど。
With a small nod, Sachi moves her gaze to the locker behind us. I see. Seems like you really might be more versatile than a Swiss Army knife.
だからあんたもうかつなこと言うのをやめなさいよ。サチには冗談が通じないんだから。
Yeah. Alright, Sachi, let's change things up for this time. get together with the ingredients for for flowing somen noodles.
はい、わかりました。
An instantaneous response even here.
ってあんた、人が注意してあげてるそばから何やってるのよ。ほら、もうサチが出て行っちゃったじゃない。食材だから今度はスーパーかしら。もしくは寮のキッチンね。
Not a problem. I really do want to try this.
じゃあなんで流しそうめん？
You said it yourself earlier, didn't you? It's hot today, so I thought a cool meal would be the best.
何よ。私のことを気にかけてくれたからって別にお礼なんて言わないんだからね。
Good job, Tsundere. I always I do a thumbs up, but whenever I look at it, the carrot, it looks weird. Like, why? I just thumbs ups are just weird, aren't they? I have double jointed thumbs though, so mine are especially weird. Okay, this looks about right. With a careful check of the bamboo flume that makes up the small canal, I've confirmed that the water is flowing smoothly. Oh, I think I've seen this. This is where you get like the cooked noodles, but you like dip them in the flowing water or flowing broth or something, and then you dip it in and eat it, right? Like almost like a weird trough. Having explained the gist of things to the others, I spent the last 2 periods obtaining the necessary materials and putting together the simple angled bamboo gutter on the roof.
お腹減った。
Alright, come on, let's get some real food in your stomach. No more candy. A few minutes after lunch break begins, my classmates, excluding Sachi, emerge.
って何これ？流しそうめんの流しでしょ。
Yumiko, you look so distant, but you showed up. I'm actually impressed you actually decided to come.
そうじゃなくて、なんでそんなものが学園の屋上にあるのかってことよ。
It's nice out here.
もしかしてユージくんが作ったの？
Yeah, there's a bamboo grove within walking distance in the direction of the mountains, so the materials weren't hard to come by.
まさか授業をサボって山で竹取りとはね。
This would be the first time I've skipped class, come to think of it.
まさかあんた今まで一度も授業をサボったことなかったの？
Yeah, I suppose you could say that.
今時珍しいじゃない。
I mean, it's interesting because I was a pretty I didn't like breaking rules. Again, I didn't want to be hated and I didn't want to be punished. I got into detention in middle school because I kept forgetting to bring a pen to English class when our teacher explicitly stated we needed to have a pen. She just got fed up with me not having one and eventually put me in detention for it. I thought it was really unjustified, but to be fair, I had definitely not been doing what she told me to do for months, so she probably just needed to try and hammer home how serious she was. But I did end up skipping classes, especially in my senior year. However, I was on school newspaper, which allowed certain freedoms to be able to go and conduct interviews occasionally. And by that time, I'd garnered a pretty decent reputation amongst the teachers, to the point where as long as I got my work done, a lot of them just would let me leave. Because I was a newspaper, I was a class representative, not in student council, but I would represent the main student body when it came to fielding. We would do kind of small cabinet meetings, you could say, where they would ask certain students to represent the various classrooms about certain things like scheduling, activities, and all that stuff. And I was elected to represent the class there. I also was in school orchestra and a science triathlon. I think we called it Science Olympiad, but it was a science and technology kind of collegiate competition, state competition. I was in part of all of these groups. And for all of these groups, I tended to get excuses to leave occasionally. And it got to the point where my teachers were so confident in the fact that I was going to at least do my homework that they just would let me leave whenever I wanted. So I definitely left when I didn't need to leave. And so I guess that counts as skipping, but does it truly count if you have permission from your teachers and it never counts against your academic report? The only times I truly missed was when I got sick. Also, I used a muscle bamboo for this thing, but when you're looking to make more intricate goods like a hamper or a strainer, the more flexible Marake bamboo is better suited for the job. If you can tell the difference between the two, it'll come in handy when you're trying to live off the mountains. Keep it in mind. All right, Mr. Boy Scout.
いや、普通女子学生が山ごもりとかする必要ないし。
I'd argue anybody should know this kind of stuff. Maybe not specifically what bamboo and how to make bamboo noodles, but like, I think everyone should learn at least some basics. Heck, I actually bought a book recently about my local area, about what types of foods you can forage in the natural area, like what kinds of plants and berries and mushrooms are safe to eat, which ones to avoid. Like, because every like location is different. Since I didn't grow up here, I never learned. Now, if I needed to go survive off the land, would I be able to? Probably not. I'd just die, but it's still good to know at least the basics.
そうね。お待たせしました。
Thought she joins us, carrying a large tote bag on her shoulder.
サッチナイスタイミングだね。
Looks like you were able to find what we needed.
はい、一通りの食材は用意できました。
Then let's start prepping for the meal.
ここが余っているようだから、私はここにするわ。とか言って、本当は楽しみにしてるから一番上流なんでしょ？
Uh-huh. Called out. Also, look at Makina has a good smug face. But so does Michiru, right? It's Michiru, yeah. That's a pretty good smug face too.
は、流しましょうか。
Yumiko, you're definitely the cutest. But that blade, every time she pulls that out for such a slight reason, it genuinely notches down on my list for me. Like, calm down, girl. Like, it'd be hard to like be around her. I mean, I'm sure she's much more normal when she does to trust you, but like, why? I'm sure there's a reason, but still, it's like, it's
それはやめておこう。ほら、カッターの葉食べたら喉切れちゃうかもしれないし。
Yeah, just a bit.
か、マキボウ。私らは上流の二人が逃した面を根こそぎゲットするんえ。
了解ですぜ、姉子。
After I distribute a pair of chopsticks and a bowl of soup for the noodles to try everyone, they take up their desired positions around the bamboo gutter. It seems like flowing somen is a rare experience for everyone, not just me.
それでは、サチ先生、ライトお願いします。はい。
In response to Machiru's yell, Sachi releases a few strands of somen noodles into the waterway.
それ、キャッチ。
Okay, so like the noodles flow down and you try and grab them. That sounds fun.
うまい。
Yumiko.
ほらほら、そんな顔しないで。まあ、ユミコも次頑張りなさいよ。次は絶対。
ねえ、あまね。もしかしてここ、すっごく不利な位置なんじゃない？
大丈夫よ。たくさん流し始めたら、必ずこぼれが出てくるんだから。
Uh-oh.
おープス。
というわけでサチ、次お願いね。では。
Ha!
言ったふふーん、私だって。
Come, back off, you two. Amane and Makina stir their empty soup bowls with hollow eyes. Because of the intense battle upstream, none of the noodles have reached their lower position. Alright, then we'll just do this. I set up another gutter that I prepared as a spare and positioned it below Michiru. Tachi, let's get some in this one as well.
わかりました。
これがジャパニーズ直通電車で社長さん。
ありがとう、ユージくん。
No need to thank me. Long time ago, I had it beaten into me not to waste the things I make.
へえ。
I glanced to my side where Sachi's silently floating somen noodles down the waterway. At this rate, you're not going to get any, Sachi. Alright, I'll secure your share. Scooping noodles directly from the original container, I deposit them in Sachi's bowl.
ありがとうございます。
ずるいよ、サッチンだけ。
そういう手段があるなら、私もユージくんから直接食べさせてもらおうかしら。
No, she's done a lot of work. She deserves it. A pair of observant hunters are on me in seconds. Hold it. If everyone starts taking noodles directly, it's not flowing somen.
ここが私の部屋だったら、ユージくんだけに 女体流しそうめんやってあげてもよかったんだけど。
Uh-huh. I'm sure you would. Sexy Soman? Nice ring to it.
ちょっとあまね、あんたいきなり何口走ってるのよ。女の武器を使った買収ってやつ？
それなら私もやるのよさ。
Oh, don't say that.
ラメって。ああ、もう何なのよこの子たちは。
It took a second. I just realized what she was saying. Oh my gosh. Game? Come on. Come on. Please. I guess it's fair. Again, you gotta remember, just because she's childlike doesn't mean she's not, like, just a child. She obviously understands things, and she watches media, and she knows what she's talking about, but, like... I don't know. I don't know. I have to agree, Michiru.
ほら、小峰さん、手が止まってるわよ。すみません。突然授業を休みたいというから何をするのかと思えば、屋上で流しそうめんとはね。季節外れの転校生だけあって考えることが違うわね。
I mean, okay, you're obviously like kind of Deadpooling it here where you're like aware you're in a game, but it's not a healthy way to approach these things. It is cute though. I do like the idea. I like how he made it himself too. Alright, looks like we'll be starting another chapter of adventure. You know, let's go a little long tonight, shall we? I feel like this is a decent place to wrap up, but I also think it'd be a little short. Why don't we go a little long? I've heard it takes about 3 days to get a cat to take to you. The girl named Irisu Makina got attached to me even faster than that. Yes, this is the same Makina who used to flee the instant she laid eyes on me. When we adopted our cat, I remember he was really confused and upset when we first transported him home. But once we were home, he took to us so powerfully. Like, he instantly bonded with us. I mean, he was a kitten who'd been abandoned. He'd probably lost connection with all his family and siblings. And so he clearly just wanted attention. But it's really interesting because, like, he's super bonded to me and my family. But if anyone comes over to visit, he gets really defensive. I have no idea what changed her mind, but lately it's been quite the opposite with her approaching me on sight.
今日も暑いね。
She probably approached you because you were so approachable and you accepted her for who she was and didn't call her, like, first of all, you didn't call her stupid. And you even said, like, look, if you are stupid, that's okay. Like, we're all stupid. Yeah, true. Not that she's particularly talkative. After a small greeting, she tends to just tag along in silence. You want something?
別に。
Honestly speaking, getting followed around for no reason like this is a little annoying. That said, there's no reason for me to coldly shoo her away either. You don't need to go to afternoon class?
今日は私の選択してる授業もうないし。
So they do have electives. How do they do electives? I see. In other words, she's probably just bored. The schedule at this school is divided between the core curriculum in the morning and optional courses in the afternoon. It's not rare for a few of my classmates to be lazing around the vending machine after lunch. If you got nothing to do, how about going back to the dorm and studying? Is what I'd like to say, but come to think of it, I'm also wandering around wasting my free 5th period, so I don't exactly have the right to lecture Makina. Want something to drink? I dig my hand around my pocket, searching for a small change.
お金持ってる。
Holding out her right palm toward me to declare, it's fine, Makina takes out something that looked like a green stuffed animal from her pocket. The vaguely frog-shaped thing seems to be a purse. Its red mouth opens wide with a snap of metal bears. I've always thought those purses are interesting. Like they're like coin purses essentially, but also clunky. Like I don't understand why you would actually want to have. Well, like, I guess if you have like a purse, maybe it's a little bit better. But even then, like, it feels like it'd be easier just to have a little like pocketbook. After taking out a few coins, Makina buys a juice box from one of the vending machines lined up with the passage, and then returns to my side. Pulling an attached straw free with a stubby, clumsy-looking fingers, Makina pierces it into the juice box and starts to slurp up the contents. Similarly, I drink quite quietly from a paper cup full of oolong tea.
今日も暑いね。
All right, we're really starting to circle the drain of conversation here. We've only been talking for like 2 minutes. True. Now we're repeating ourselves. Probably evidence we're both puzzled over how to get a conversation started. Who was it that told me the man has to break the ice in a situation like this? Of course, I'm not confident I could pull that off if I tried. What do I talk about with a girl like Makina?
ねえお兄ちゃん、なんかお話をして。
Probably. I'm not sure I can share them. Stories. Stories. It's a fairly standard request, but I'm not sure where to go with this. What sort of story?
暑いからなんか涼しいお話。
If it were me, I could talk about skiing. I used to love that when I could do it. I guess I have a lot more fond memories of going tubing slash like snow sledding. Why did it take me that long to think of that word? I was like, what? I can actually think of one of the craziest ones I ever did. I don't know why I agreed to it. Like seriously, we just were gonna die if we'd just done one wrong thing. Because what we did is it was like heavy snowfall out in the like northwest of the United States. It gets a pretty intense snowfall in the wintertime, and it's pretty consistent. So after a particularly strong like snowstorm would come through, you had like 3 feet, 4 feet of snow in the yards, and you had about compact snow and ice in the roads. So like, yeah, if you went on the highway, they were like properly plowed, like all the way down to the asphalt. But in neighborhoods, it tended to just be compact because you're going slow enough. It usually wasn't a problem. So my very crazy uncle got into his 4-wheel drive van, tied a big rope with a bunch of knots in the end of it to the like hitch on the back of it, laid it out behind us. We all jumped inside our inflatable tubes, grabbed onto the rope, and went speeding through the neighborhood, being pulled by a van at like 20 miles an hour, which doesn't sound like that much, but if you were to let go of that rope or to get swung like wide and end up hitting like, I don't know, a tree, it probably could knock your block off. Anyway, that's my cold story. A cold story, that's a bit tricky. When you're looking for a chilling tale, I think ghost stories are the standard choice. Fortunately, I'm not lacking in that department, a legacy of our time I spent at my old school. Alright then, this is something I heard from an upperclassman at my previous school. The story of an American soldier who found himself on the southern island in the night flooded with lukewarm rain. The soldier was making his way south through the darkened jungle, amid the pelting downpour, following a native trail with 8 companions. Their objective was an enemy aircraft position. Okay, just war stories. The rain had been falling for 2 days straight, leaving the ground swampy at a padded field, with the moon hidden by thick storm clouds. The soldiers couldn't even see the back of the comrades walking 2 or 3 meters ahead. The squad's nerves were already worn by the suggestive darkness of the night jungle, but the relentless rain piercing through the tree canopy was slowly snapping their endurance as well. And on top of it all, the rough map they'd received from the scouts was vague to the point of uselessness, good for little but further fueling their anxiety. As the squad trudged on at a virtual crawl through the knee-deep mud, it was inevitable that their formation grew increasingly loose. So the American soldier, a sniper bringing up the rear of the column, was desperately struggling to avoid getting separated from the rest of his unit. Eventually, he heard a distinctive clacking from some distance in front of him, rising above the sound of the rain. He recognized the sound as the canteens. I don't know. Cantonets? Is that supposed to be like plural? The cantonets the platoon leader carried as a means of communicating at night or in poor visibility conditions where hand signals were impractical. The number of times he clacked indicated the order to halt on the spot. The man dropped to one knee in the muddy water, grasping his rifle to his breast and removing the lens cap from his scope, shielding it from the rain. An enemy ambush. Lying flat on the spot, the man pressed his strong eye against the gun's sight. The back of the soldier in front of him came into view. No shots had been fired as of yet. Earlier, the reconnaissance had indicated there were barely any enemy troops or armed guerrillas in this area. This is sounding like Vietnam, maybe. If there were enemies here, the odds were that they'd be scouts, and most likely a fairly small group. As the man rested his chin in the muddy water to watch the jungle ahead, he heard the first sound of gunfire. The enemy wasn't even 30 meters away from his squad. They'd apparently bumped into each other. Sheesh. 6 lines of fire from the enemy position, just as he thought. It seemed to be a small scouting group. Judging from the reckless way they opened fire blindly, they were probably poorly trained guerrillas who had panicked after encountering their enemy under the unusual condition. Removing his gaze from the scope, the man grasped his weapon and pulled back the bolt handle, pushing a 7.62mm bullet into the exposed chamber. Quickly returned the dominant eye to the eye cap in his sight. The muzzle flashed visibly through the scope, burned white after the after images into his pupil, fully dilated after his long walk in the darkness. He couldn't see the enemy. Aiming on intuition, he squeezed the trigger. A momentary explosion of light from his gun, and he heard the enemy's grunt from the bush some 30 meters away. A hit. The man took his rifle in both hands and began to crawl on his elbows and knees in search of a new firing position. Which is actually good sniping strategy. Fire, then move, because as soon as you fire, they know where you are. After moving about 10 meters to his left, he discovered a convenient foxhole that would serve his purpose nicely. When he swung his body down into the hole, he found it was half full of stagnant water, just as he expected, but the fact barely registered in his mind. More importantly, from a position like this, he could snipe while hidden for a time. Sunk to the waist in muddy water, he mechanically pulled back his rifle bolt and squeezed the trigger, again and again and again. All of a sudden, he heard a voice from next to his foxhole. Since when had it become occupied? "Hey, give me your grenade." In response, the man took an M67 grenade from his belt, slung around his waist, and handed it out, the safety pin still fixed in place. A white hand reached out from a nearby trench and received it. "Thank you." The man was certain he'd heard those words. But no matter how long the man waited, his comrade didn't throw the grenade. Maybe the safety pin was bent somehow and he couldn't get it loose? "Hey, you okay?" As the man was speaking those words, he started to move his head to look above the edge of his encampment. At that moment, the grenade exploded in the next foxhole. Ugh! Explosion at point-blank range isn't something you hear. The overpowering waves of sound aren't recognized by your ears as noise. A mass of burning air struck the man like a wall, knocking the helmet off his head and thrusting his body backward into the muddy pool. His mouth, thrown open by the explosion, was instantly filled with filthy water. As the man desperately tried to spit it out, he realized his tongue had been knocked back into his throat and he couldn't breathe. Quickly, thrusting his hands into his mouth, the man peeled his tongue free with his fingers, powerfully vomited out the water together with the breath he'd gathered in his lungs. That sounds fun. His throat was burning from inhaling the explosion's scorching wind, which would actually contain like ash and not more soot. And he couldn't stop the tears that were pouring down his face. His head felt like it had taken a direct hit from a fastball made of concrete, and his ears were filled with high-pitched ringing. "Hey, you all right? Get it together!" Curled up in the muddy water with his head in his hands, the man heard a voice of a comrade. At least his eardrums hadn't shattered. Felt himself being dragged up by the foxhole by both arms. "Gotta move! Temporary withdrawal! Can you walk?" It took all the man's effort to nod his head. He couldn't see, his ears were barely functional, and his throat was on fire. He couldn't even speak. The man began to run his hand across the ground in a panic. His comrades knew what he was looking for. The man felt his rifle pressed back into his hands. Reassured by the familiar feel of his weapon, the man slung it onto his shoulder, his hands still clutching the ground. He fled that place at a crawl. At 30 minutes passed, when the man came to himself, the rain had, ironically enough, finally stopped. His vision had largely recovered. When he looked around, he saw his companions, all just as filthy with mud. "Hey, Shorty, you still alive?" The sniper was still scurrying around the ground when that voice called to him. It belonged to a black man who joined the army at the same time as him. They'd been in the same squad for their training days as well. The black man was his closest friend in the platoon. His greeting was as casual as always. "Give me a break." The man re-shouldered his beloved rifle and told his friend about the hand grenade accident. That voice from the next foxhole, the grenade he handed over in response. Moments later, an explosion. The man angrily spat out the details of his brush with death through another stupidity. The black man listened in silence. When the story was over, after a brief pause, he finally spoke. "Huh? The hell you talking about, Shorty?" The black man said his story was impossible. Come to think of it, of course it was. The man who was in the unit's birdmen, the rear guard, the end of the line. Usually the birdmen marched 10 or 20 meters behind the squad. There was no way an ally would have been encamped only 2 or 3 meters from his position. Even considering his movements to change his fighting position, he couldn't have met anyone until they'd broken into retreat. I mean, let's say you're right. Some jack dropped a grenade in his own foxhole. Okay, who was that? When the man looked around his surroundings, all 8 of the squad's other members were accounted for. A few were lightly wounded, but clearly none of them had been receiving end of a grenade blast recently. So, who the hell did you give the grenade to? In response to his friend's words, a shiver ran down the man's spine. After rejoining the main force and completing his report, the man told his story to a grizzled veteran. The sergeant major had an explanation of sorts for him. That place right there is the site of an old battle where the Americans died. Among them were many wounded who had been cruelly, slowly butchered by guerrillas with spears and bayonets, and some who'd reached a grenade on their waist and pulled out the pin rather than being tortured to death. Oh gosh. So in the end, those who had taken the magic grenade, perhaps a lingering spirit still clinging to the battlefield even in death. Or so the story went. What do you think? Get a bit of a chill?
なんて話を聞かせてくれるのよさ。おしっこちびりそうなのよ。
Oh, sorry about that. Forget it.
無理。今夜一人でおトイレ行った時、絶対泣く。
Oh no. My bad?
今度お話をする時は、もうちょっと楽しいお話にして。
Yeah, got it. Makina threw her empty juice box into the trash can and starts to patter away. As usual, she leaves as quickly as she arrives. But this time, after walking about 3 meters, Makina stops on the spot and turns back to me.
ねえ、お兄ちゃん。
What?
お兄ちゃんは死後の世界ってあると思う？
Well, that's a heavy question. Life after death. Can't say for sure since I've never experienced it firsthand. If you believe in it, then maybe there is. In the army, there's a popular story about the afterlife exclusively for soldiers. It's a story you'll find in the armed forces of pretty much any country, in pretty much identical form. If you believe an afterlife is waiting for you, it will be. I'm sure it's something like that.
そっか。ありがとう。じゃあまた。
With those words, she runs off, this time without looking back. I don't think I said anything particularly interesting, but hearing words of thanks naturally lightens my mood anyway. Drinking up the remaining oolong tea with a gulp, I throw the empty cup in the trash bin and walk off towards our classroom for the 6th period class. Well, that was interesting. Yeah, interesting. All right. Now we're going to end. That's a good place to stop with that chilling story. Thank you so much for joining me. Hope you all enjoy. Especially thank you to the patrons and members. You guys make it possible for me to make great content like this. And thank you especially for picking this game. I'm glad you did. Seems a lot of people are very appreciative of it. And I think you've got good taste, as always. So thank you. Yeah. I'm not sure what the whole... I kind of thought we were going to get to know a few more of the girls, but it feels like we're a lot more generalizing now. It seemed like we were going on themes, but maybe that was just to establish like our first like friends being Amane and Makina, which makes sense. Maybe the other girls are just not as approachable. Sachi just seems distant by default. Michiru is always putting on a front, so I imagine she's kind of a hard like block to crack. And then, is it Sachi or Yumiko? Whatever. Purple-haired girl with a knife. She's not going to let us get close until the very end. You know, she's made that abundantly clear, so that makes sense. I'm curious to see, though. Are we going to continue seeing Amane and Michiru, or are we actually going to be having some more personalized moments with the others? I'll have to find out. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. Looking forward to playing this next week and seeing what else this story holds for us. But I appreciate you being here. I love reading your comments. I hope I give satisfactory answers. I try and answer all the comments. There might be a few I don't, but that might be because I don't have much to add. But usually I say something. So I look forward to reading your comments when you put them there. But otherwise, thanks for being around. Until the next video, watching me, but see me in next. I'll see you there.